Creating a really good settlement from scratch for your tabletop adventures can often be a daunting task, even for experienced game masters. Fortunately, there are many guidebooks available to help. These are two of the first I ever purchased back in the 80s. Now today the resources available to us have vastly improved. So whether it is a small hamlet or a major capital city, the task needn't be overwhelming. One of my favorites, a book that truly deserves a standing ovation, is Spectacular Settlements, published by Nord Games. To prove this, we're going to create a small village together to really show off the power of this book. First, I just want to say, this is an exceptional resource for game masters seeking to enrich the world building and immersion in their RPG campaigns. With this book, you'll be able to easily create something as small as a trading post all the way up to a major capital city. And don't worry, if you're busy, the book comes with more pre-generated settlements than you might ever need. To help populate your world, the book even includes over 100 pre-generated NPCs, including shopkeepers and market traders, to nobility, leadership, beggars, and everything in between, sorted by type. The book is divided into chapters, covering various aspects of settlement building. The book also provides a vast selection of settlement types, such as villages, towns, and cities, with its unique quirks and characteristics. This level of detail helps game masters of every skill level to create and customize settlements to fit their game world. Some of the many useful features in this book are the tables and charts provided to help GMs create settlements on the fly. The book is massive and I love it. However, I'll be using the PDF for this part of the video to better show you an example of building a village entirely from scratch using just the random tables. Of course, you don't have to make this process entirely random. You could simply pick and choose what you wanted for any size community. Each type of settlement has 3 primary steps. There's step 1, basic information. These tables provide the main foundation for creation of your settlement. Then step 2, community. The tables in this section provide important information about the inhabitants. Then step 3, points of interest. The tables in this step determine what locations are in your settlement. There's a 4th optional step called Intrigue. These are basically tables to indicate what's happening when the player's characters arrived. It just adds a little interesting flavor to the final design. All of the different settlement types have very similar tables for creating your community. For now, we're just going to be creating a village. So let's start with the basic steps. First, the age. How old is the settlement? We use a D20 for this, and I have a result of 6. Looking at the chart, this means our new village is established. The text says this village has been settled for a few years, has been able to successfully sustain itself, and the families have started to grow. So this gives us some background. This result also gives us a -2 modifier to our population density and hardship likelihood rolls. Those charts will come up shortly. Next, we have hardships with a D20, but we get a -2 modifier from our prior roll. This chart determines how many times we roll on the 2 hardship tables. We get a 12, which is modified to a 10. This means our village has endured 2 hardships. Using a D8, we learn the first hardship is victim of war. The description tells us the village was struck by the ravages of war, passing or foraging armies, collateral battle damage, disease from war-related issues such as camp hygiene or illness from dead bodies. This result will later modify the rolls for settlement condition, size, and population density. We now use a D10 to determine the severity of the first hardship. We rolled a 10, and fortunately, this gives us a result of minimal losses, stating the village's losses were as little as could have been hoped for. Since this result is so minor, we only receive a -1 penalty to this hardship's listed modifiers. For our second hardship, again using D8, we get a 2, bandits on the road. This is going to later affect the village's wealth. To determine how bad this hardship is, we again roll D10 with a result of 8, moderate losses. This mandates a -2 to the hardship's modifiers rolls. So far, with just these 2 basic features, we have learned our randomly generated village sounds like it is in a dangerous place. First, from being caught in the crossfire from nearby wars. Furthermore, our unfortunate village is being attacked by bandits. Now using a D20, we randomly determine the size of our village. Because of the victim of war hardship and hardship severity, we must modify this result by -1. We roll a 9, giving us an 8 for medium, up to 60 standing structures. It sounds like this is, or at least was, a big settlement. I'm excited to find out more. Next, we will randomly determine the condition of this village using 1d20. We receive a 4, modified to a 3 due to the hardships of war. Oh, the condition of our poor village is dilapidated. It is at a state of disrepair. Some buildings may be coming down or may have been built in a shoddy fashion. Cleanliness is not a priority. This gives us a -3 to our upcoming population wealth roll. Added to the bandits on the road hardship, they now have a -5 modifier to the population wealth. Sounds like these people have been struggling. Now, before we continue, just think about what we've already learned and let your imagination go wild. What happened here? Who were the passing armies? Who are the bandits or pirates that have been robbing them? And now we roll 1d10 to randomly determine environment. We get a 9, giving us the result of tundra. Again, to point out if this or any step doesn't fit your design needs, you can just choose a result. Obviously, if your campaign takes place in the hot jungles, an Arctic village wouldn't make a lot of sense. But for our purposes, this is cool. No pun intended. So we have this village set in the Arctic tundra that has been negatively affected by war and is the target of bandits. Now I'm wondering if frost giants might be involved. This is something a game master would decide while finalizing the design. We now use a d6 to determine the village's specialty. We get a 6 for crafted goods. The text tells us the village is known for the craft of a certain item or type of goods, widely liked and highly valued, such as handcrafted furniture, a category of clothing, etc. Since the book doesn't tell us specifically what this might be, the creative game master can use their imagination. Were these crafted items sought out before the wars? Or were these something that started being created because of the war? Maybe they make really good backpacks, or cold weather shoes, or any other items of value you might find necessary in this cold environment. Next is resources, and we get a 3. For result of herbs, with the text telling us herbs grown in the village are used for alchemy, medicine, or simply cooking, and are typically tended by an individual due to their more specialized and potentially dangerous nature. The individual may have had some degree of medical or arcane training. We are also told unless the village is extremely small, it is unlikely that herbs are a village's sole focus. The location will be a herbalist hut and gardens. So in addition to the fine crafted goods, the village was known for some important NPC who's producing some type of special herbs. Again, the creative game master can decide exactly what this might be. But as you can see, our village is really developing a personality of its own. Now we roll a 1d12 to determine events from the village's recent history. We get a 2, and this is attacks, explaining that members of the community have been attacked, either by brigands or perhaps monsters. This completes the first part, our basic rolls. And even though we have only used dice rolls, we can see how all of these results tell a unique story, and so far, this sounds like a dangerous place to live. Moving on to step 2, community. Our first roll here is for population density, and we use a d20. Our result is a 13, modified to a 12 from our earlier hardship results. This means our population density is populous. There are enough people here for the village to manage all tasks without difficulty, and there are no further modifiers from this result. Then we roll a d20 for population demographics, and we get a 3, indicating there is only one primary race of people living here. Next, we roll a d20 for settlement disposition. Our result of 3 tells us the villagers are unfriendly, stating they don't much care for visitors, looking upon them with contempt, fear, or suspicion. And given our prior results indicating war and bandits, in addition to potential monsters in the surrounding territory, I think we can understand. Now for law enforcement. We again roll d20, and this time we get a 6, indicating our village is a disorganized rabble. This village has little to no organization. Law and order is usually formed on the spur of the moment to address a particular issue. This gives us a -1 to our upcoming crime roll. What does this say about the village? Are they chaotic in alignment? Or were their peacekeepers all killed in previous conflicts, resulting from the hardship rolls of war and bandits? Now we roll a d6 to determine the village leadership, and with our result of 4, it tells us there is a local council. This tells us that prominent members of the community lead the village collectively. This might raise more questions. Are these leaders incompetent or maybe evil? Why is the village so lawless? Maybe this council was formed only as a temporary solution, resulting from the loss of the settlement's true leaders. We must now determine our population wealth by rolling d20. Our result is 5. However, we are hit with a -5 modifier from earlier results, giving us a 0. Since a 1 is the lowest this chart goes, we have destitute, further informing us that most of the population consistently lacks the barest essentials of what they need to survive. This also gives us a -2 modifier to our upcoming crime roll. Considering our result was actually a 0, we can assume these villagers are far more than just destitute, but perhaps starving and greatly suffering. Since the earlier rolls indicated this is a medium-sized village with up to 60 buildings and a robust population, I think we can assume that the tragic hardships rolled earlier are what brought them to this point, and a once prosperous growing village is now dying. Our next random roll is the d20 for crime. We will be receiving a -2 to this roll from previous results. Our dice gives us a 4 for a 2 result of average, telling us that theft or violence can happen from time to time, and it is best to keep an eye out. This also gives us a +3 modifier to future urban encounter rolls. It's another great feature of this book to have this random encounter table provided for us. We are now moving to the third section of our settlement creation, points of interest. Some initial text tells us that residents of a village do more than just work and sleep. Other places are important and in regular use. There are 2 in particular, places of worship and places of gathering. You may simply elect to have one or both of these within your village, as they both usually make sense. For our place of worship size, we roll a d20 and we get a 2. That's a low roll, and this means all they have is an altar. This is described as a small shrine or other small special place. This leads me to wonder, did they have a temple that was destroyed by the war or bandits? Or was the village always centered around a small natural holy place, like a well springs or special tree or other natural feature? Now let's find out just how dedicated these villagers are to their religious convictions. And rolling a d20, we get a 20. This result tells us they are zealous. Our villagers are utterly and unthinkably devout, forcing their doctrine upon their surroundings and peers, or taking actions that further their cause regardless of personal cost. These people must have some reason for their faith. Perhaps their deity has visited here or left some sign of its influence here. Maybe the holy site is the hand or footprint of the deity in a rock face. Really, the possibilities are limitless. The added text here says that while this might be seen as a negative, this could also be a positive, explaining this might be a church of light rising up in an evil kingdom, helping those in need, even if it puts themselves in peril. So now I have all kinds of questions about what's going on here. Obviously, this village has some intense spiritual significance for the people who live here. Maybe my earlier assumptions were wrong, and perhaps the village has always been struggling, but people come here anyway to be near the holy altar. And so far, we don't even know if these people living here are predominantly good or evil. They might even be neutral. This could be a village built around a druid's grove in the Arctic, with the crafted goods used for barter and trade and the special herbs produced here might have some connection to the altar itself. And for the alignment of the faithful, we roll a d10 and get, oh wow, a 10. This means that the villagers are good. And because our village size is medium, we are granted 1d2 gathering places, and my result is a 1. Now we roll a d4 to determine what that gathering place is. Our result is a 3, indicating a gathering hall. This is described as a general building used for community organized activities. So what might this be? I'm imagining a sort of Viking longhouse, but it could be any large structure or large area big enough to accommodate a lot of people. And we are nearing the end here with just a few more rolls to fully complete our village. Let me know in the comments what you think so far. What are you picturing with all these rolls? I want to hear about your ideas. Now we have to determine other important locations. For our medium-sized village, we roll 1d2 plus 1. My result is 2, so we will have 3 places of interest here. We'll be rolling a d100 to find our results. The first roll is a 36. This is a thatcher. These are the people who build roofs using layers of dried straw, reeds, rushes, etc. And this fits perfectly. We're in the cold Arctic tundra, so we need to protect our villagers from the elements and snowfall. So of course they have someone who really specializes in this. Next we roll an 87 to get soothsayer. Oh, this is awesome. This is someone who provides magical predictions and prophecies. Well, this just has to be connected to our holy altar, don't you think? And lastly, we roll a 60 to get shipwright. Now, these are the people who build and launch boats or ships. This means our village is near a large river, and maybe this is a typical form of travel to and from this location. Our village is basically finished, and we could stop here. However, we're going to continue on to the 4th optional step, Intrigue. This is where we learn what might be happening in the village when the player's characters first arrive. Rolling a d10, we get a 2, indicating a party. When the player characters arrive, the village is holding a party. This is described as a fun event. that brings the community together for fellowship and camaraderie, and could be happening for a number of reasons. Again, the game master can use their creativity. Perhaps they just defeated some of the enemies that had been causing them problems. Or maybe they've received good news of another type that is cause for celebration. Maybe if the player characters are well known for defeating evil, the villagers might have heard of their arrival and are celebrating with an assumption that they'll fix the problems for them. Now we roll a d6 for political rumors, and we get a 1. This indicates mighty misfortune, and tells us misfortune has fallen upon a prominent figure residing near to but outside the bounds of the settlement. So who is this person? Were they an enemy or an ally of the village? The additional text informs us that they may have been stripped of title, robbed, murdered, or even simply just lost at gambling. Whatever best suits the game master's needs and imagination. In fact, maybe this is why the villagers have been having that party. Now we roll 1d20 to learn if this village has any unusual superstitions, and we get a 9. The residents here believe you must never use dull scissors, because if you do, you risk accidentally cutting the thread tethering your soul to your body. Interesting. We could perhaps assume that these villagers worship or fear some type of lady of fate with scissors and a spindle. Now we roll a d6 and get a 2, resulting in a road merchant. The book tells us a traveling merchant just arrived and has all kinds of unique things to show and sell. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm already suspicious of that guy. Rolling another d6 to give us local opportunities, we get a 2, indicating wildlife, stating local wildlife has been harassing the villagers or animals. Perhaps the player's characters could defeat this foe for the village. And now we roll a d10 to determine if there are any weather concerns. We get a 4, indicating thunderstorms or blizzards, telling us the precipitation hasn't been the problem so much as the severity of the storms. It is impossible to work or travel in these conditions, so village residents are holed up inside, waiting out the storms, which have been occurring much more frequently. Oh, now I'm wondering if that monster in the wilderness is connected to these harsh blizzards. We are asked to roll a d20 to determine the degree of danger presently affecting the village. It sounds like we've already got a lot of other concerns going on here, but we get a 20 and oh no, this can't be good. The result is extreme. And then we roll a d6 to learn what exactly is causing this current crisis. And we get a 4, indicating disease. These two rolls together indicate that some severe disease has been spreading throughout the village. So why are they having a party if there's been this horrible disease running through the village? Maybe they don't know that's how diseases are contracted. Well, we've come to the end for random village creation. This surely is a far more creative and thought-provoking village than I might have otherwise come up with on my own in 10 to 15 minutes. Reflecting for a moment on all our roles, what does this tell you? What is happening here? Surely this is an amazing springboard for an entire campaign. A once prosperous village located in the Arctic with a holy shrine and fanatic believers protecting it. In addition to being affected by war, bandits, wilderness monsters, and crime, they lack an organized means to keep law and order. There's so much to work from here, and I hope this single example gives you ideas and inspiration. I spent many years using the village of Hamlet, or some renamed variation of it for my games, and I can only imagine how much more colorful and intriguing those early campaigns might have been if this book had been available to me then. Spectacular Settlements gets an A+ rating from me, and I'm sure you'll find it just as useful. It's an excellent resource for any GM seeking to enhance their game and reduce some of the burden often associated with creating population centers in a fantasy role-playing game. You can find it in hardback, as the one I have here, and it's also available in PDF format. Now, I hope this information has been useful to you, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If it was helpful, please stab that like button and let us know in the comments what you think. Do you already have the book? If so, what are your thoughts? Are there other books similar to this that you want to tell us about? Let us know in the comments. As always, I'm your host, Atten, here at We Love TTRPGs, and I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Thanks for your support.